Welcome to the channel. Let's talk about why our culture could be the one thing that is keeping us poor. You see, this is something that a lot of people are not talking about, and most of us are probably not even comfortable talking about this. You see, the habits, not all of our habits are made by us. It could be cultural, it could be something that we grew up with, we did not choose to be in those cultures. We just found ourselves to be there, right? And some of these habits are the ones that could keep us broke all the time, right? Let's break it down. One is celebrations over savings. Yeah, you see, in most cultures, especially in African cultures, you find that um, celebrations are the ones that are more favored or more valued in comparison to savings, right? You find that some communities, they value weddings, they value funerals, birthdays, harambes, yeah, even though the money collected during those harambes are to impress others, right? You find that someone is throwing this huge wedding, trying to uh, have this big celebration just for show off, right? In fact, I saw someone say that someone wants to throw that big wedding, and then after they've sort of lived together or moved in together, then they now sleep hungry. They've already spent millions in the wedding, but now they end up, you know, not having a lot of money while actually living together, right? And so, what's the point? What's the point of throwing these big parties to just impress strangers or people, and then finally end up, broke? Yeah. So I think some of these cultures are the ones that are keeping us broke. Talk of funerals. You see, funerals, especially in African setups, you find that you could find that someone is so sick in the hospital, sick, and instead of probably contributing for that person to sort of get money for treatment, you find that we are very slow when it comes to contributing to that medical bill. But when that person dies, everyone wants to show up, wants to contribute to the funeral, right? They want to sort of come there, cry out, pretending to care so much, but they did not care that much. Another thing is pressure from family. You see, expectations to sort of support your relatives, cousins, and probably distant family members, you find that sometimes can drain your income. Yeah. I mean, helping is good, yes, but when it becomes a never ending obligation, you find that it sort of prevents you from building wealth, right? And that brings me to black tax. Yeah. This idea of always helping your siblings, your parents, and these expectations from your parents to sort of help them all the time can sometimes be something that can drag someone behind, right? And I think that explains the reasons why most of us are not coming out of poverty, right? How can you come out of poverty? Because now you find that everyone is always starting from zero. Everyone is starting from zero. Right now, I help my parents. I have nothing saved up. I have no investment that I could pass to my children, right? And then my children, they have to now start afresh. They need to hustle from the beginning, right? And now there is no that continuity, in terms of businesses that I can pass down to my generation and so forth and so forth, right? So you find that in that family of yours, there's no generational wealth at all. There is nothing that is left for you by your relative. Everyone starts over and over and over, and as a result of that, you find that poverty always is the one thing that prevails in that family. Yeah. Talk of respect for appearance. Yeah. I think this is one thing that affects most of the youth nowadays. People are so attracted to, the brands, clothes, cars, gadgets, to sort of quote unquote look successful, right? You see, our culture values images more than real financial security. Yeah? And I think this culture that you always, you'll gain respect when you sort of look successful. Yeah. Everyone is trying to paint that picture of wanting to look successful. And I think that's what is keeping us behind. Yeah. Talk of beliefs about work and money. You see, in most cultures, you find that there is people, they tend to sort of glorify suffering or endless hard work, instead of promoting, people working smart. Yeah. You find that other people discourage risk taking, entrepreneurship, or even women handling money in some cultures, right? I saw the other time the Taliban. Yeah, I think Taliban, for those who don't know, is this political affiliation, yeah, movement that is ruling over Afghanistan at this point in time, right? Because earlier, I think a few years back, I think in 2020 or something like that, yeah, the American army withdrew from Afghanistan, and that is when now the Taliban took over, yeah. And before, when American troops were there, you find that there was that government that was there, and at that particular time, you find that our ladies, they were allowed to study, they were allowed to work, and all that. But now, when the Taliban took over, you find that now women were supposed to not work. In fact, now even freedom of movement for the women sort of was restricted. You cannot just go out without being accompanied by a male individual, right? Someone like your brother or your husband. Yeah. So you find that I think those cultures are sometimes could, spread poverty. Yeah. Because now, if consider yourself a lady, you are a lady, you're living in Afghanistan, for example, and you don't have this much opportunities, this a lot of opportunities to sort of work and all that. How do you intend to build wealth? How do you intend to sort of have income generating, you know, things? You can't have that much. And now there is also this belief of always doing hard work, and not working smart. You find that in some, I think, in some Western cultures, Western countries, people, there is no even time for yourself. People want to always see you working, working and working and working and working. You do multiple jobs. Personally, I don't think it's only about working hard. I also think it's about working smart and re-strategizing, right? Yeah. Then the fifth one is taboo, and especially with money. Yeah, talking about money becomes taboo. Yeah, so you find that, especially in African countries, you find that there are some cultures that sort of discourages people from talking about money. Children grow up without financial literacy. Nobody teaches you about money. I mean, how could they teach you, yet they do not even know themselves, right? They can't. And you find that some cultures, you find that talking about money is considered rude or prideful. Silence is always the thing. And I think that sort of keeps most people ignorant, and not and those with the knowledge about money, they keep that knowledge to themselves. And without financial literacy, you find that there is no that effective means to sort of build wealth. Yeah. The sixth point is marriage and dowry costs. Yeah. I think in some cultures you find that the aspect of marriage and dowry, before you marry, are nowadays exploitative. Yeah, I think in some cultures, especially here in Kenya, you find that you want to marry and then you ask to produce millions. Yeah, produce millions to just marry. And personally, I do think that could be exploitative. What happens if I don't have that money? Am I supposed to go into debt to just pay for dowry? Or, I mean, what's the point here? So you find that engaging in such cultural beliefs sort of can bring someone in, can keep someone poor. Then you don't have a lot of options. Yeah, you don't have the money to sort of start your life or build your life up, because now you've spent all the money paying dowry. Yeah, and then the two of you come struggle in a marriage, and then probably the problems that comes with that, right? Finally, there is resistance to change. Yeah, so sometimes you find that culture tells us that this is how we've always done it. It's how we've always done it. Yeah, but in today's world you find that a lot of things change, and if you don't change with it you find that you always remain in the same point. Yeah, and so by clinging to outdated traditional traditions, you find that they sort of prevent you from adapting to modern opportunities, right? Imagine you see in some African cultures, you find that there are some people who are not educating ladies, right? And you find that parents they sort of prefer to educate the male kids compared to the female kids. Why? Because now, according to their culture, it's always been done that way. It's always the norm. It's always been the norm that ladies don't go to school. Yeah. And so you find that those ladies fail to get those opportunities because now the parents are sort of still in these old cultural beliefs. Yeah. They sort of still follow that old cultural beliefs. Yeah. And what happens to the income generating ability now, or that financial literacy of the lady? You find that it's not so much, and that that person who is not educated could end up in poverty, right? What do you think? Do you think culture sometimes keeps us poor? Leave your thoughts in the comment section and list that one thing that you think culture, that one cultural belief that you've heard of or that you know that sort of keeps us poor. Yeah, and also support the channel by subscribing, of course, and see you in the next one. Bye.